there.
Hi.
We are the
Dyslexia Duo.
Each week, we sit down with amazing people, including top researchers and experts in dyslexia, powerful advocates, affected individuals, and more.
Together, we break down the myths, share real stories, highlight research and strategies to advise our listeners about this prevalent learning disability. Come join us.
Hey, Melissa.
Hey, Amy.
So today we have a very, very special guest with us. Today we have Tiffany James, and I know a lot of our, especially Texas friends and overseas too, probably recognize that name. So Tiffany, will you go ahead and introduce yourself to everybody?
Sure. Well, I'm Tiffany James. I was formerly the Director of Education for Nessy Learning. Before that, I founded a reading center in Texas. And now I'm a trustee of a couple of charities in the UK, Dyslexia Britain and the Dyslexia Trust.
Very nice. Very nice.
Wonderful. Talk to us about this cross-continental relationship, Texas and Britain.
Well, so I had my reading center in Texas, and I was also a reading specialist when I was in the States, and I was working with a charity, a nonprofit, who we were looking after immigrant children from Texas. Mm-hmm. And I was tasked with figuring out a way I only had 8 teachers that worked for me to help me with these 8 teachers, myself, figuring out a way to teach all of these children English in this program. It was a lovely program. It was a great program that also did things like gave them a meal in the evening, and they came several nights a week. They also were working on math, but they wanted me specifically to screen them for dyslexia, which was a challenge because I am not fluent in Spanish, and only one of my tutors was, and I had to figure out how to do that. But then also it was just teaching them English. And the only program that I could find was this program, Nessy, from the United Kingdom.
Oh.
So I started using it in that program. We had great success. And the owner of the company, who later became my husband, Mike Jones, started to hear about the work because it was in the papers. He started to hear about the success. And I went to a conference. I was asked to go to a conference, which was the International Dyslexia Association Conference. I think that year, can't remember it. It may have been in Orlando. It could have been in Dallas. But I didn't really have time to go to this conference, but I was persuaded to do so by somebody that worked for Mike. And I went and met him, and we started working together from that point. But one lovely thing about Mike is when he found out what I was doing, he just wound up giving all of the product to all of these families. Because the lovely thing that happened is we would have these children in, we'd have the teachers, and the mothers started to come in and sit next to the child and work with them on the computer, and they would bring little notebooks and teach themselves English. And then the grandmothers started to come in, and we even got a few grandfathers. So in a little while, we were not only teaching children, we were teaching their mothers and some of their grandparents to speak English as well. These children did so well that they were not speaking any English when they came to me in August. And by Christmas time, these kids, some of them are writing full sentences. It was incredible. Absolutely incredible. So he heard about this because Nessy was not designed as an English as a second language program. It was designed for dyslexic kids. Now, it is based upon structured literacy. So it is very structured and cumulative, and it does all of the wonderful things that we know teach children to read well. So it worked beautifully with these kids who were speaking Spanish at home and in school. They were speaking Spanish at home and in school. But anyway, that's how that happened. And then a few years later, I came over here to work and do some work. And then later we wound up getting married. And then I joined the Nessy company.
Wow. That's amazing.
That's neat. That's a neat story to live in 2 different continents and, have this cross-global experience where you could really see how your efforts as a dyslexia interventionist can make a difference in somebody's life, not only for dyslexia, but for the ESL part. It's incredible. I love it.
We've been very blessed in our jobs and in our life to get to share the program. We were able to share the program with kids all over the world. And a lot of that was by selling it, but a lot of it was by donating it as well, because we have a real passion for children that come from a background that might not have as many resources. And we really focused on areas in Australia and some of the indigenous populations of Australia. We focused on low-income areas in the United States and other places around the world. In Africa, we were very blessed while we had Nessy, because we've since sold Nessy, but while we had it, to be able to do that. And it went out to hundreds of thousands of kids. And we gave out, I think it was something like $3 or $4 million worth of product over the time that we were there. And
Wonderful.
but this was our heart. This is what we love to do. So now we're quite happy to move on to another phase in our life where the work is really just advocacy and getting help to kids that need it. So in the charity world. So we're we find it a lovely time in our lives to do that.
That's why I'm so glad we're doing this with you, because you're another voice for the advocacy world that Amy and I are trying to get ourselves into as well, and help as many people as we can know more about reading disabilities. And now I hear that ESL can even be, helped with this. So thank you for your contributions.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you as
so
well.
You've touched a little bit on what you've done in the field of dyslexia, but can you talk to us a little bit more about your journey? We've heard a lot about, before we turned on the recording, about what you're doing and your mother-in-law and your husband and all of that. But I think that what you were telling us was so moving, and it wasn't things that I knew. Could you talk about your journey from advocate to educator to what you're doing and all the things that led up to it?
I can. I mean, I guess there are a couple of parallel stories there. So you have, in this country, you had Pat, who is the mother of Mike Jones, who is, I think we discussed before, she has an OBE, and she's received the Lifetime Achievement Award from the British Dyslexia Association for her contribution to dyslexic children in the UK. So we had that. She was growing her center on this side of the pond. And later she grew a center that still exists, and she actually started a school called the Belgrave School, which still does exist as well today. She's no longer the head teacher there. She's no longer the principal, but it still exists. So that was happening there. And on my side in Texas, I had a dyslexia center, and I was serving children in that community. I did get to come over here a little bit because I won a fellowship grant from the Henry Foundation in West Texas, which is a foundation from, I think it was Paula Henry, who focused on education and children's kind of charities and things like that. And they selected me to go over to the United Kingdom, also to go to work a little bit with Marianne Wolf in Medford. So, and learn the RAVO program. So they sent me up there first, and then they sent me over to the United Kingdom to work with the British Dyslexia Association. So I had been over here a little bit, and that may have been the way I was originally acquainted with Nessy. I'm not sure, but I was certainly over here working and learning in this country for a while because of that fellowship grant. But the grant was specifically for me to take that knowledge back to Texas, back to West Texas, to enrich the community there. But anyway, that's how that began.
Yeah, I love that. And it's so funny because you said, "Oh, I'm from Texas." And I'm like, "Oh, where about y'all?" She said, "Midland, right? You're from Midland, Texas." Yeah.
From Midland, Texas. Yes. My family is still there.
Wow.
Parents are there. I have a sister and brother-in-law and nieces, nephews, and some kids still in West Texas.
So do you come and visit very often?
I do. We'll be there for Thanksgiving.
Oh,
it is our tradition. Yes. Our tradition is to go to Ruidosa. Do you know Ruidosa?
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Yes. So we have it's in New Mexico. So we have a family. If you're from West Texas, you would know Ruidosa. So we have a vacation home that we've always had since I was a little girl. So, and that's our tradition to go there. So we have one of our kids from here flying over, as well as Mike and I, and his girlfriend flying in from Canada. And we have some of the kids that are already there, and the rest of relatives, some aunts and uncles, and all kinds of fun stuff will happen.
Wonderful.
That is so cool. So you get the best of both worlds, because Texas is like an amazing place, right?
Yeah, no,
I mean, we love it here.
Love it here for sure.
I do love Texas. I do love it.
Yes, and we, like Amy and I, we want to go over to England too.
Right.
So we're going to try to get a podcast going over there.
That would be great. Yes. We had a meeting before we sold Nessy. One of the last meetings I attended was actually in Fort Worth.
Oh.
And I brought the team to Billy Bob's, Billy Bob's,
yes.
for some line dancing.
Oh, fun.
And they did pretty well. They couldn't quite get the two-step down, but they got the line.
That's all right. I mean, you know what? I was born and raised in Dallas. Really haven't moved other than to go, on vacation to different places. I can't two-step. I can't line dance.
Oh my.
Not at all. Not at all. No.
Fun.
What about
Well,
you, Melissa?
I can two-step.
Can you?
I can two-step and I can do the line dancing. Now, because I'm older now, I don't think I would really get out and do it. I don't think I would get out and do it, but I loved going to. There was a club called Denim and Diamonds when I was like 21 or even younger. They allowed us to go in under 21 because our legal drinking age is 21 here. They wouldn't allow a lot of people under 21 to go into clubs, but when they had like a junior night or whatever, and you could go in as an 18-year-old, but they would like put a little mark on you somehow to let people know that you couldn't drink. But I would go with my older sisters, and we just had the best time. Even though I wasn't a huge country music fan, we just had such a good time dancing and, being around other people that are our age, and it was just so fun.
Yeah, no, somebody would ask me to dance, and they'd get me on the floor, and I'm like flailing everywhere. They're like, okay. Put her over there.
So fun. So good memories.
Okay. Something I miss about Texas is that I do miss dancing.
Yes, right. We had just had a really good time with the Billy Bobs and all these other little clubs.
But we never went to Gillies. But Gillies was a big deal when Urban Cowboy came out back in the 80s.
Yes. That was a big movie. I remember.
And I watched it recently, and I'm like, this is crap.
I haven't seen it since I was a girl, but okay.
Well, yeah, watch it now as an adult, and you just go,
That's happened before, though. Movies that I thought were really great.
Yeah, great. And you watch it as an adult, this is horrible.
Well, are not very good.
That's funny. All right, so you talked a little bit about your reading center in Texas. Can you tell us about that and what your mission was behind it? Kind of what got you going?
So, because I am a mother of dyslexics, which is a common theme that runs through many of us that are advocates, where many of us are mothers of dyslexics. So that's what got me interested in dyslexia. And so I was already teaching. And so I was a reading specialist, but I became interested in dyslexia then, and that led me to found the Reading Center. But through the Reading Center, I had that private practice, but through there we were contracted with a charity, so a nonprofit that worked with immigrant children coming in from Mexico who were non-English speakers. I mean, they spoke no English at all. And like I was telling you earlier, it was a challenge to try to assess them and screen those kids for dyslexia. That was difficult because I'm not fluent in Spanish at all, and I only had one fluent teacher. So I had 8 teachers, but only one that was fluent in Spanish. So we did that, and then also I was tasked with finding a way to teach all of those kids English, and which was really challenging. You know how difficult it is as a teacher. You cannot work with large groups of children very easily. I mean, you really need to keep it to small groups.
Right.
But I found this product called Nessy in the United Kingdom. And it was the only thing I could find after a lot of research that would work for this program with this many children. So I could have just a few tutors and really get it to all the kids that I needed to do. And so we started using that. And that was my introduction to Nessy. A happy accident that happened with that, well, a couple of fun things happened, is the kids that were working would come in and they had their Chromebooks or their laptops up, and there was a teacher kind of roaming the room. Well, their mothers started to sit down next to them, and then they to watch and see what the kids were doing and try to learn with their own children. And then they started bringing in little notebooks and a pen and taking notes and writing down facts, and then asking the tutors also to help them a little bit. So the mothers wanted to learn English with the kids. And then we started to have some grandparents, some abuelos and abuelas come in, and the same thing. So we wound up with families in there, not just kids. And Mike Jones whom I didn't know at the time, heard about this because it made the news and it was in the newspaper and on the local news. And he heard about it, and he just decided to donate all of the licenses. He said, as many as you need. There's no cap on it. As many as will come, as many as you need. And that was kind of my introduction to Nessy. So I learned not only that Nessy was a fantastic way to teach a lot of children. I mean, nothing's ever going to replace a one-on-one. I mean, you're just not going to do that. But it is really good. It's a really good second choice because you can teach a lot of children, and it individualizes to the child, so they get that kind of prescriptive teaching.
Yeah.
And then because of his gift, I learned about kind of the heart of Nessy too, how important it was to him to help kids, especially disadvantaged kids, especially kids that didn't have the economic advantage that others had. After I joined Nessy several years later, that was our mission. It was a mission of ours to give away as much product as we possibly could especially to areas where there were economically disadvantaged children. And we did that quite a lot in Australia. We worked some schools in the outback, and we wound up doing lots and lots in Australia over the years, and some in New Zealand, some in various places in the United States that were more economically disadvantaged. Some were like youth detention kind of centers. We did some of those. So we gave away lots and lots, millions of dollars worth of product. And that was our heart. I mean, that's really something that drove us forward in the business. We really love to do that. And now we've moved on to just doing that full time. So we're pleased to sit as trustees to a couple of charities, Dyslexia Britain and the Dyslexia Trust. Now, the Dyslexia Trust was originally founded by Pat Jones, Mike's mother, and she is the lady that is portrayed in the short film about dyslexia called Michael, Mical.
Wow. So tell us a little bit more about the short, the documentary, Michael. I think that would be a good thing to talk about.
Yes. So Michael it's a lovely film. It's really not a documentary. It's more biographic. And it was beautifully made by these great filmmakers. It's a really lovely, lovely, touching film. You can still get it for free on YouTube. If you go to Amazon, some of the other places where you can see it, you do have to pay for it. But if you look for it, you can still find it for free in a couple places on YouTube. And just on YouTube alone, it was over 2 million views. So it was viewed many, 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 many times. It won quite a few awards too. Yeah. Unfortunately, it was released right in the middle of COVID. It was supposed to, in California, we were supposed to actually have an opening in California in one of those beautiful Art Deco looking theaters. And it was lovely. And we had this tour we were supposed to make around the United States with the events during the opening. And then, of course, that was canceled, and we had to do an online opening on YouTube, and that's why it wound up on YouTube.
Wow.
But it's great that it's still there because people can watch it for free years later and still get the benefit of seeing it and not have to go to a theater to pay for it or go anywhere to get it.
I do remember watching it, and I miscalled it a documentary because I knew it was more like a movie type of thing.
Yeah, it's a short movie. It's about 22 minutes, so it's a short film. And it won in some of those short film categories. But the way that it came about is we're at this black tie event in London where Pat was receiving the Lifetime Achievement Award from the British Dyslexia Association for services to dyslexics in the UK. And we were at this event where she was being honored, and we were approached by some filmmakers, some really great filmmakers. It was a lovely event. We actually won they call it a hamper here instead of a basket. We would call it kind of a gift basket.
Yeah.
That's what we call it. They call it a hamper. And it was filled with all of this lovely china, and it was from Princess Eugenie. Had donated it. And
she's dyslexic, isn't she? Is she
right,
dyslexic?
she is.
Yeah.
And so she donated her house that time, might still be, it was called Ivy Cottage. So I remember the interlining in the basket was all ivy. And then we actually still have some of this, and my mom has some of it in Texas, but some of the china that was used at her wedding was in this basket with other lovely things that she donated to this cause. And it was kind of an auction item, and somebody won the auction and bought it and gave it to us. So we have all this stuff from that night. But it was a lovely night, and we met the filmmakers there. And Mike and I executive produced the film, and it's a great film. Most of the crew were dyslexic, which was fantastic. So many of them were. We had a dyslexic, one of the boy that plays the bully was dyslexic in the film. Not the boy that played Mike. The boy that played Mike in the film was actually performing in the show Matilda on the West End, which would be like to an American Broadway.
Yeah.
Okay. In London, it's called the West End. So he was starring in that, and then he did this on the side, the film with Michael. He played it brilliantly. So watch it if you haven't watched it.
Yeah.
It's really good.
We'll put a link in the show notes. Yes. I know it's on YouTube, so we'll put a link to that.
Yeah, sometimes you have to dig for it a little bit to find it. Yeah. Silver Prince Pictures.
It pops up every once in a while on my Facebook. And I'm like, oh, hey, yeah, I remember that.
And can you tell our listeners why it is spelled the way it's spelled?
Yes. So it's spelled Michael because that is the way that Mike was attempting to spell his name when he was at school. And Mike turned out to be severely dyslexic, but he was actually asked to leave 4 different schools. And his mother, she's a determined woman. So if you see the movie, you'll learn more about her. But she was a math teacher, and she knew that what she was being told at school wasn't true, that her son wasn't stupid, and that she just knew it wasn't true. So she got him assessed from an ed psych and found out his IQ was 147. So he was very smart, but he had severe dyslexia. And she didn't know anything really about dyslexia. A lot of people didn't know much about dyslexia in the early 70s. It wasn't something that many people knew about. And she went over to the States and she took a course with Diana King. And then back in the UK with Bev Hornsby, I believe. And she also just read everything she could get her hands on. She took him home and homeschooled him and taught him to read. And once he was taught in the way that he needed to be taught to learn to read, which, now we would call it, structured literacy or I guess for a while you would call it kind of an Orton Gillingham influenced way. Right. When he was taught that way, he learned to read. And he went from being the bottom of the class to the top of his class. And he stayed the top of his class all through school. And then he actually graduated from law school at the very top of his law school class.
Wow.
So he went from a boy that couldn't spell his own name to the top of his class in law school, and then founded a very large, successful company after that.
And I think what you're saying is so important, especially with the timing with October being Dyslexia Awareness Month, even though I think I was saying in another podcast the other day, we always should be aware of dyslexia. Yes. It shouldn't be just confined to 31 days, one time a year. And I think you are illustrating why it's important to one, say dyslexia and get our kids identified in the appropriate resources that they need.
Right. And as early as we possibly can, because early is essential. Early is better.
Yes, absolutely.
And you see how capable they really are when they get the correct interventions.
He actually says, I mean, because in many interviews, he said he doesn't know where he would have wound up without his mother. He would have been illiterate, and his life would have taken a much different path had she not done what she did, because he was on a path to unpleasant things. It wouldn't have been good.
She's an amazing mother.
An amazing mother. But there are a lot of amazing advocate mothers out there in the space. When you meet amazing dyslexia advocates, they're almost always mothers from my experience. They almost always have had this experience with their children. Once in a while, it might be a nephew or a niece, but most of the time it's the mom that has had this experience.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thinking about your time when you were at the Reading Center, do you have any outstanding stories? I know you talked about working with second language learners. Do you have any personal or outstanding stories you can think about from that time?
Well, I always, I always love to see my former students do well. And in Texas, there is a country music star called Braxton Keith, and he's kind of a rising Texas country kind of star, but really, really doing well. I mean, he played the Grand Ole Opry recently.
Oh,
so
wow.
He's really, and he was one of my favorite students back then. He came to meet me in a classroom after, not even at his school, in another place. I started for a speech therapist, so we started there, but he was with me so long. He was from like 7 years old there, and then he wound up coming to classroom until he was about 13, 14 when we finished. So, and now he is, and he wrote me a little note once. I messaged him a few years ago to say, I messaged him every once in a while, but a few years ago, I messaged him to say how proud I was when I saw, some of his first songs had come out. And he said, I wouldn't have been able to write songs like this if it weren't for you teaching me.
Oh, did
anyway,
you frame it? You should frame that little note.
I should frame it. I should frame it now that he's famous, because he wasn't famous then, and now he's famous. Right. He should. And I will tell you that this is a silly story. It doesn't have anything to do with dyslexia, but we find things to motivate specific kids. And his was Skittles. And I bought so many bags of Skittles over the years. I mean, loads and loads of Skittles, because his mom was really good. So she knew that was like the motivator. So she wouldn't let him have any Skittles at home. And the only place he could get the Skittles was when he came to do the work. And so, yeah.
That's a great idea.
We lived on Skittles. So
I love it.
That's funny.
Okay, so for listeners who might not be familiar with Nessy, what is it and how does it support learners with dyslexia?
So Pat, that I spoke about a little bit before, she has this amazing story where other mothers started to come to her after she taught Mike and said, can you help me? And so she would help them around her kitchen table, and she was helping other kids. And then she grew that into a dyslexia center. I mean, dyslexia center that's pretty well known in Europe. It's quite a big, tall 5-story building, dyslexia center filled with tutors and ed psychs and all the lovely counselors and the people that look after dyslexic kids. But it started at her kitchen table. And that is part of the Nessy story, because all of those great teachers, she trained all those teachers herself back then. And all of those teachers that she trained over the years came up with really nice, fun games and tricks and had all kinds of great things that they added to kind of the Orton Gillingham's base of this curriculum and made it fun. So Nessy's tagline is learning happens when it's fun, because she found that with her son, she needed to make all of that teaching into games to really get him to engage with her. And so after Mike finished law school, he went to her dyslexia center, because by this time it was quite big and it was successful and in a big building. And he was answering the phone just as, like a summer job in between law school and going to train as a barrister. And he was so touched by the mothers calling up and crying, and it just really touched his heart. And by the end of the summer, he told his mom, he said, I just really don't think I'm destined to be a lawyer. I don't think that's what I'm supposed to do. So he went back to college, and this time trained as a dyslexia specialist teacher. So he went back and got another degree doing that. And then when he finished that, he went back to his mom's center and worked there as a teacher for quite a few years. And he began to see that they were doing great things, but they only could reach 400 kids in that area, because that's all they could do. They just couldn't do any more. And he thought, what if we make this digital? The first program was actually on the internet. Do you remember when the internet used to go?
Yes. Yes. Looking at my husband. Yes.
Yes. Schools didn't buy it and didn't want to use it because they didn't have, they did. So he actually put it, remember those round silver discs?
Yes.
He actually, for years, it was sold on those.
The little CDs, right?
CDs, like a little CD. Yeah. I'm sure your husband would probably correct my terminology, but yeah.
He's good. No.
Was it called a floppy disk or something?
Not
maybe
a floppy. The silver ones are CDs, right? Yeah, they were. The floppies were the squares.
The square ones. Okay, so it was the silver one. So it sold it like that for years and years, and then it, of course, went all online. But that's how Nessy became Nessy, and it's always followed kind of an Orton Gillingham structure. Mm-hmm. And then we added in fluency practice and all of the vocabulary and grammar and all the things. Nice. So it really became a structured literacy program, and it was so big that's why it was called Nessy, because it became a monster of a program. So that's where the name comes from.
I love that. I didn't know where Nessy came from, and I figured it had to do with the Loch Ness monster, but I didn't realize.
We're in the UK, so the Loch Ness Monster is, yeah, but that's why when you hear Mike talk about it, he says, with these kids, with dyslexic kids, they need so much. They need so much repetition, especially the older they get. If you get them younger, they don't need as much usually, but they need so much repetition and they need so many different novel ways to practice skills that it just became bigger and bigger and bigger. So a monster of a program. And then it became other programs.
I think like today we're in Melissa's center, and then I have a center in Prosper. And I want to say at my center, I have like 3 Nessy books that, yes. And I think it's from the regional service centers and from different conferences and things that,
these are paper books.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
For sure.
So Mike wrote one called Dyslexia Explained.
Yes. I think I have 2 of those. Yeah.
You 2 of those. And I wrote one called What I Need. So
nice.
they were both bestsellers on Amazon, and we have this little rivalry between us because he had his for many years, and then I wrote mine, and then mine got better reviews than his, and so we sort of needling each other. And sometimes there were a few reviews that said, "Oh, well, this Dyslexia Explained is okay, but it's not nearly as good as What I Need." So I'll show him and needle him a little. And then he wrote another great book right before we retired from Nessy about spelling rules.
I'd like to see that.
It's a great book if you can get your hands on that. It's a really good. It's a great one just to have for teachers in the classroom because you can easily look up the rule.
Okay.
Neat.
It's presented in a really fun way.
Yeah,
Mike always does everything in it's always fun.
Well, and that kind of leads me to my next question. So I've presented at a few conferences, and one that I did 2 years ago was actually increasing student engagement with gamification.
Okay.
And we're both dyslexia therapists, and I was talking to other dyslexia teachers, other dyslexia therapists in the area. And, so you don't want to do gamification all the time, 24/7. That kind of defeats of what you're trying to do. But gamification can help bridge those gaps. So can you talk a little bit about why it's so important for literacy development?
Well, I mean, going back to even what Pat found with Mike was a very challenging student, I'm told. So to keep him engaged, she had to make it fun. And Nessy is really games based. There are elements in there. There are a lot of printable materials and things to really follow up on those games and really expand upon those games, especially when you need them. So there are 1,000 worksheets that are printable that go with all of the games. But that was really the philosophy behind it. And it's always been our philosophy is that learning can be fun and should be fun. But I think you may run into quite a few teachers that are just at a loss at how to make it fun, especially especially when you're in that beginning phase of really just phonics. You really
when it's so cut and dry,
you can make it novel and spice it up a little bit.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, adjusting to the individual child is important as well, because some will need it one way and some will respond to something else. And that boy that I told you about, that's now a man called Braxton, I finally figured out a few years into it when we were still really struggling, is that if he knew the rules and he actually could tell you the rules and apply the rules on paper, but to really get it cemented in his memory, he made up songs because he's a musician. So he would actually, when there was especially the tricky words. So when there were the tricky words like because, for instance, something very tricky, he would actually, I'm not even going to try to sing it, but he would actually make up a little song and then he got it.
How smart is that? That is so
I don't know why it took me
smart.
so long to think of it. I mean, I was thinking, okay, you're a musician.
Yeah.
And it clicked like that. Those tricky words. We have about 100 quite tricky words in the program, and he was able to master those.
Wow.
Well, and what's really cool too about games is that the kids really don't realize that they're doing all the work you normally ask them to do, but they're just having fun with it, and they learn quite a bit from that process. And I love incorporating games. I've actually used a few of the Nessy things that I can find online because I haven't bought the program because I actually don't even know how to do that. So I actually need to get that from you maybe after the end of the show. But I've found some different YouTube videos online, and I incorporate that into my lessons too. And the kids just latch on to it. They love watching those little videos. So
yes, the videos are fun, aren't they?
It solidifies what they've learned.
So the way Nessy works, or the core program, we're just talking about the core program here, the Nessy Reading and Spelling, the old first original one, is introduced with a video, like some of those are on YouTube. And then it moves into what would be kind of early sound association. So games that are taking tiles with letter sounds and putting them together, kind of like you would, if you were teaching. Yeah, so you're doing the same thing, but you're doing it with your finger online. It moves into those. That it moves into using those words in a sentence, and it moves on, and then encoding them. So it goes through all of these different. But it always starts with a little video. So those videos that you see are kind of the beginning or the introduction of the concept to each new concept for the children. And the kids, when they use Nessy, they're they're assessed every 5 lessons in reading and every 5 lessons in spelling. So after those 5 lessons, then it readjusts itself and it gives new concepts to the kids. So kids are never on the same. Right. They never have the same lesson plan. They're always working according to where they need to be. And sometimes it'll bring them back again if it finds later that they need more work. It comes back to that again. I did a study in a school in West Texas where it was a 3-year study where we compared Nessy Reading and Spelling to, and this is again before I worked for Nessy, so this is a long time ago, Nessy Reading and Spelling to Saxon phonics. Are you familiar with Saxon phonics? Just to see what would happen, and used dibbles as 3 times a year for 3 years to find out how they did. And the kids that did Nessy far outpaced the Saxon ones. It was absolutely incredible. So yes, this is even before I worked for Nessy. So, I'm not cheerleading something that I was selling or anything. It was incredible. So, and one of the reasons I think that happened is because it does individualize. And so kids were working exactly where they needed to be. And the teachers teaching Saxon, it had two classrooms of teachers teaching Saxon, and both of them were like Saxon experts. They had kind of certified in Saxon, done it for years. But they start at like page 1 and they have to go to page like 200. And the kids really have to stay on pace with that. And what we found is that, some kids, certain concepts, they need more work. They need to stay here just a little bit longer. Some kids are ready to sail ahead. And the concepts aren't even always sequential. Some need a little bit more on one particular skill or 2 particular skills. And so what Nessy does, because of the way it works, the way I just described it, it refocuses their lessons every 5 lessons. So they get a new lesson plan every 5 lessons to really fill all of those holes. Yeah. And they make fast progress, because if it's just a few holes that need to be filled here and then they can really move on, it does that. So it was really cool. And we used it with the kids that were called GT kids as well, gifted and talented kids. And it was amazing. So in grade 2 or 2nd grade, we had kids that were working on really complex multisyllabic words, the gifted and talented kids. That you can have gifted and talented kids that are also dyslexic. So let me make this clear. These were gifted and talented kids with no dyslexia. And they were reading really, really, and spelling really, really, complex words like chauffeur, for really difficult words, while, the other kids in their class were doing other things, and they wouldn't have had the opportunity to really study those words because they were several years above their grade level. Yeah. We're talking words that would be from the kind of the 5th grade spelling list that they were doing in 2nd grade. So it really hit everybody. So it was a fun study.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors.
Hi, this is Melissa with Kids First Dyslexia Services. I am excited to share with you my private practice. Kids First Dyslexia Services is a private practice that specializes in dyslexia therapy. Each one-on-one session focuses on instruction specific to your child's needs in a nurturing environment that develops self-esteem, builds confidence, and fosters a sense of accomplishment, resulting in happier kids with higher levels of achievement. We provide a professional, personalized experience, always putting the child first. We value the relationships with both our students and parents. because strengthening skills and overcoming hurdles to achieve desired goals and success is a team effort. For more information, please visit www.kidsfirstdyslexia.com. That is www.kidsfirstdyslexia.com.
Hi, this is Amy Rodenroth, and as part of the Dyslexia Duo podcast team and owner of Discovery Dyslexia Services, I want to talk to you about my business. Our COUT-trained team offers expert virtual or in-person therapy located in Prosper, Texas, using proven dyslexia curricula like Take Flight, Build, MTA, Alphabetic Phonics, and Reading by Design. We also provide crucial independent evaluations and advocacy services. Don't wait. Empower your child today. Visit www.discovereed.com to learn more. That again is www.discoveread.com. Discovereed, covering all your dyslexia needs.
Let's return to the show. Do you see this as something that could be used as tier 1 instruction in a classroom and continue up the tiers, even to tier 2, tier 3?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
There were a few schools in Texas that were doing that, and I think they are still doing that. So they were using that. Yeah, they're using it as core and also using it as intervention. So, and then we had some guidelines for that. So for using it for core instruction, it was just like 20 minutes twice a week, so it was not very much. And then it was maybe 20 minutes 3 or 4 times a week with kids that had more need.
Okay. That makes sense. I was going to ask what the difference would be between the 2 tiers with using Nessy, but okay, that makes sense.
It was just a time thing. Yeah, it was just completely a time thing. Another thing that you could do, and these teachers that taught Nessy really well in some of these schools, is they would print off the printable materials. And so one thing it does is it sends the teacher a report every Sunday, and it tells them what every child is working on. And so the teachers could therefore kind of break them into 3 groups, and they would rotate them around during their literacy time. So they would have one group that was working independently on the computer, and they had one group that was working with them at a small group table, and then they would have another group that was doing independent like activities or card games, or if there was a parent reading to them or something else. And they would rotate through 20 minutes, 20 minutes, 20 minutes, or a little shy of 20 minutes. And those kids did really, really well when it was used that way, because it kind of got everybody. But that report actually let her see these, like I have this whole group and all of these kids are really needing this whole group. And so she could use games and cards and one-on-one with them.
That's really neat. And I wonder too, does that affect, say, for example, if somebody does get identified as dyslexic, does that change? In Texas, I know that they go to a dyslexia intervention program. So what do you do? Do the kids still use that Nessy program in their classroom as tier 2 as well?
Yeah, there's nothing that would contradict one-on-one intervention. And so, I mean, it just depends on how sophisticated the teacher, the teacher can go in and you can let the program just work on autopilot. It can just do like the way I just described.
It assesses you.
Right. Or especially a specialist can go in and say, okay, this is what I want this child to be working on this week.
Okay.
And they can just go in just very quickly, click, 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 click. These are the 5 things that we're going to focus on in this sequence this week. And so you can line it up with anything else. So it works really well with anything that's kind of Wharton Gillingham.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I love to hear that. Thank you. Okay. And so you kind of answered my question about how it complements structured literacy approaches. It sounds like it does a very good job at teaching those basic skills. And then you've got it set up where it can be kind of almost assessing the kids and giving them what they need exactly at that time. Can you share then a success story from a child, a parent, or a teacher using Nessy?
Oh, wow. There would be loads and loads of them. We were constantly getting letters and from teachers and and parents. Some fun things, success stories. Because I was more interested in, instead of individuals, students, which those letters would come in, but working with research. And so during the COVID period, we gave Nessy away to lots and lots of schools, and we were able to follow their progress on Nessy. These were schools that were just using it for everyone at home. So all of the children were using it. And the Nessy assessment, it correlates well with the Slauson oral reading test.
Yeah.
And right. So there were other things that we could use to see exactly where these children were, and they did really, really well. There's a great study showing what the expected growth would be for these kids, and there were two American schools and two British schools. Wish I had it in front of me. I don't remember anymore where they were. I think there was one in Texas, but it would show kind of what the expected growth would be, and then if they were using the program as directed, the right number of minutes a week, then where the group actually got. And if you look at the two graphed, it's pretty amazing. Wow. But the key is the minutes a week. So they have to use it the expected minutes a week. And I believe the expected minutes a week we gave them was 40 minutes a week. So it's not a huge amount of time.
Right.
But they did really, really well.
That's incredible. So thinking about all your expertise in dyslexia, and, you've heard us say we're in Texas, and Texas was the first state to pass Texas dyslexia law back in 85. But we still have pockets of misinformation. It's a big state, but we still have pockets of misinformation across the state for our teachers in the classroom setting. So in your opinion, what are ways that teachers can integrate more dyslexia-friendly practices into their daily lessons?
That's a great question. I really think some basic education, and again, we don't own the company anymore. It sounds like I'm just, cheerleading it on, but we wrote, and it's been very popular for years. It's just kind of a Dyslexia 101 course. I mean, really simple, and it's used to be given away for free during Dyslexia Awareness Month. So I don't know. We'd have to check on that and see if they're doing that this month. But even so, it's quite low cost. It's not very expensive. It takes a teacher about 4 hours to complete it. And it's a series of modules. They start with a video module and then a little quiz afterwards, and another video and another quiz. And it really gives teachers all of those tips, a lot of tips, and just a lot of really basic information. This is not a course for specialists. It's not a course for, it is a course for classroom teachers, aides, anyone that works in a school, and moms and dads like to take it because it really just gives you good basic information. And I would definitely start there.
Oh, I think that's great. I know they have the TDIA models. I can't remember what the acronym is. And that teachers who have students in their classroom, everybody has a dyslexic student in their classroom. They just don't know. Right. Yeah. They just don't know. Somebody's not identified yet. But it's encouraged that they have that according to the state of Texas. But I love this other resource too. When I have teachers saying, I need to know more information, as opposed to training as a dyslexia teacher or practitioner or a therapist, giving them this resource too, I think is valuable. That's incredible.
And you have some of the books. You said you have Dyslexia Explained, which is good for kids. And then the What I Need book was written specifically to help give kids a voice so that they can go in and talk to their teacher about what they need to be successful in the classroom. So it gave them things that they could ask for, accommodations that they could ask for, and ways that they could talk to their teacher.
Very nice. Very nice.
Okay, so really, what about balance as far as educators and the digital tools and face-to-face instruction? So I know that for me, recently, some research has come out about how the digital world and kids being on devices can actually change the way their brain is developing. So finding that nice, healthy balance between using the digital tools and the face-to-face instruction, how do you feel like educators could balance that?
Well, we've always been conscious of that. I think that was one of the topics Marian Wolf was looking into for quite a few years ago. So it's always been on our mind. It's been on my mind. That's why the recommendation use for our program, the digital recommended use is quite low. Like even you're talking like 40 minutes over a whole week. So not 40 minutes a day, and it's just 10 minutes a day, or depending on how you break up your time, because it's important for kids to write with a pencil. It's important to get those things in front of them. And we always say it was never designed to replace one-on-one, because you're never going to, if you have a skilled, talented dyslexia therapist or dyslexia specialist, teacher, you're never going to replace that with an online program, in my opinion, and that was Mike's opinion as well. You're just not going to do that. But what this does is it's a tool for that teacher to use, or even an untrained teacher, or a teacher without sophisticated knowledge of dyslexia can use it as well as a supplement. Or if in some cases, like I said, where we're reaching really disadvantaged areas with kids, there just isn't one. Yeah. And, it is the best that they have. They do make good progress with it. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be as great as having a therapist, but they do make good progress, and it, is able to reach large numbers of students. Not too many minutes a week. It's keeping that down.
I really like that feedback, because I know for myself with my son, he was 8 years old when the first cell phone started coming out, and then he was basically 14 or 15 before we let him get his first smartphone and his video games and all of that. And I kind of regret ever letting him have stuff when he was younger, because it's just like now he's just got to have something in his face all the time. And it really makes me sad. He's 25, and it just makes me sad, because I tried my best, but I still failed.
Oh, you didn't fail. I mean, we didn't know, did we? We didn't know. And you guys might find this interesting, is back when I was a classroom teacher, I was still teaching in the classroom, even though I had the center on the side. And 2 days a week, I was still in an actual classroom. I began to see, and I also assessed lots of kids, like 400 kids a year, all these kids coming in. And I began to see children just didn't come in with the phonologic skills that they had before. It was just different. It was very different. And what I did is I set up in the school kind of a reading fair, where we had different specialists at different tables, and the mothers could go and talk to them at different places. And we were almost like trying to tell these moms that we really needed to get the kids off the screens. That the iPad use it's great. It's lovely. And, there are lots of great things, and you can learn. There's a lot of great learning, but you still need to actually sit them down in your lap and read to them. You still need to, listen to audiobooks. You need to do all different kinds of things, not just looking at the screen, because it was just really strange to me that this whole batches of children were coming into kindergarten, 4 classes a year after, 4 different classes year after year, and their skill level was so far below kids just a few years before. And we had this data because we had all the, the incoming testing to compare it to. And, it's just really strange. I mean, I don't have that's all anecdotal evidence. I don't know that that's what caused it, but it's what I thought as a teacher had something to do.
I think the same with oral language. I can see a lot of difference in kids' ability to have those oral language skills and just deeper thinking.
Right. I don't know if parents aren't engaging with them as much.
I think that's it.
If that's that, like that. Was it Todd Risley did that study a few years ago about oral language and the difference between the number of words and the actual literacy out.
Yes,
like the number
I know what you're
remember
saying.
That?
Yeah.
It's quite a few years ago now, but it was like the Matthew effect. If you were not speaking, parents that were not speaking many words to their kids had the literacy outcome was much lower than those that were speaking lots and lots of words to them.
Well, and then if you think about even the Shaywitz graphic, what do you do when a child reads 20 minutes a day? They're exposed to so many more new words than you would even get on a television program or something like that, And I think that's actually, we were talking about this with another guest the other day. I think we're at a place because listening comprehension and background knowledge plays a huge piece in literacy. It's not just that PA and decoding and fluency, but it all plays a piece.
It's
and
a
how
whole
are these? Right. How are these kids going to get that background knowledge? Part of it's coming through conversations that you have at the dinner table with the parents.
Oh, yeah.
There's been many a time that we go to restaurants and all the kids have an iPad, and you're like,
I know, I see that too. That's a newer thing, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's just, and I get it because it was hard. Our kids are in our 20s, their 20s and 30s now.
Yeah.
But I can remember going to restaurants and they just want to run the whole time. And you're like, oh my gosh, we're never going out to eat again, because we can't sit still. But I get it. I get you want your kid to sit still and eat their food, but at what price? At what cost are we doing to our kids here?
Well, Natalie Wexler was on our show last season, and she talked about how exposing them to oral language doesn't have to be an elaborate, expensive thing. You just go to the grocery store, you talk about the fruit, where it was grown, where the person got it from, just how it feels. Is it smooth? Is it bumpy? Is, those different things. So I think that keeping that in mind would be huge for these young parents of kids growing up. I just hope that is something we can make more aware.
Greg, when we went to Ireland, what did they call juice in the store? It was squash. And I was okay. Not smash, but squash. And so Greg had said,
like the game, the racket game,
right? Right. And I walked up because he goes, one of the things you need to do is just go to the grocery store and just see how different it is from the American stores. And I was like, all right. And so we went to the grocery store and I came to an aisle that said squash and biscuits. And I was like, oh, I know biscuits are cookies. What is squash? Like a whole bunch of squash?
I know it looks, like we have yellow squash that you kind of make into a nice.
But it made me think, if that initiated a conversation that I remembered as an adult, imagine what we could do at the grocery store with our little kids.
Right.
The squash thing.
Yes. That's good.
Smash. Well, it didn't make that big of a difference. I came up the wrong word. But I thought that was huge because so many just conversations that you can have with your child at the store, what they're seeing, what you're doing, what you're doing. I'm putting the parsley in a bag now. I'm going to go weigh the oranges, stuff like that. Just talking about what you're doing is important.
Anything. That Risley study is interesting too, because it talked about how it didn't really matter if the conversation was, what you might consider a lower quality conversation. It just had more to do with the number of words. So even mothers that maybe don't have as high a level of education and as large of a vocabulary, they still their kids had really good results if they were just talking about simple things. Just like you said, just, how many
difference between squash and juice.
Apples are red. Yeah. Difference between squash and juice.
So I have a question for you with advocacy. So how can parents effectively advocate, in your opinion, if their child's needs aren't being met in the school system?
That's a difficult one. And it's probably different regionally too. So you've got, the US is going to be different than the UK. It's going to be different than Scotland. It's going to be different than Australia. School systems are all different. And even in the States, they're different from state to state.
Yeah, they are. District to district, even.
District to district. I mean, I guess the first thing is to learn as much as you can, to really go in with some knowledge. If you can bring some evidence, that's good. Like if you can bring, something you've printed out online, or you can bring a book, or you can bring to show them. And, I guess be assertive, but be kind to the teachers, be kind to the teachers. Most teachers, even those around the world, it's the same. Most teachers went into teaching because they want to truly help children. They want to, they did this, and many of them really just don't know what to do. I mean, they're just, it might be less in the States. I don't know that in the States, maybe there's a higher level of knowledge, especially in Texas.
I mean, it depends.
It depends on where you are, I guess. Yeah. But it is worldwide. Teachers just don't know. And it's not, many of them, it's not because they don't want to know. They just weren't, it wasn't in their university course, in their college courses. They didn't learn about it. So they just don't know.
Still going through that. I mean, it's better. It's a little better at some universities. We talk about this all the time. I mean, I graduated a long time ago, but when I graduated from college with my bachelor's, we were whole language, right? And then I got my master's in 2018, and I had one course that talked about dyslexia for like one of our assignments. And that was it.
That was it. And that's around the world. You'll hear that.
Yeah.
I mean, in most places you have that. And then often teachers also were given, a lot of them were given bad information about dyslexia. So it's not that they have no information. Some of them have the wrong information.
Yes.
And yes, and kids are subject to that.
Absolutely.
So what systemic changes do you think are most urgent then? Thinking about Texas, United States, worldwide, what do you think?
Yeah, I would say most on our heart, and what we've always worked for is two things, is really getting good instructional programs into the universities so that people that are studying education have that basic knowledge. They've had a course in dyslexia, so that at least they have an understanding. That's always been our mission, and it will continue to be our mission through our charities now that we're working more on that. And then the second one is early intervention. The earlier you can get them working in an Orton Gillingham or a structured literacy, or it's called different things in different places. In the UK, they call it phonics, and there's a lot of kind of anti-phonics backlash here. But you really do need to teach them. You really do when they're little, when they're very little. So the earlier you can get in there and get them identified, the better the outcomes are.
Absolutely. If you could change one thing about how schools address dyslexia, like tomorrow, like it's going to happen tomorrow because I said it today, what would it be?
I would say that they have at least one person in their school that has a high level of qualification. It's going to be regional. So, I mean, where you guys are, it's going to be like a therapist, right? Like, right. It's going to be called differently in different places, but at least one. We call them here, I think they're called dyslexia specialist teachers with a level 7, but it's you're going to have at least one.
What does level 7 mean?
It is, the educational system here is very different. I guess it might be, I'm trying to figure out how you would it might be equivalent to a master's degree.
Okay.
Maybe, sort of.
Okay.
Sort of equivalent. Here they finish school when they're 16. So.
Oh.
I didn't know that.
Yes. So they finish school when they're 16. Now it's mandatory for them to go to continuing education until they're 18.
Okay.
Oh.
But what they would do in continuing education would be one of two paths. One path would be kind of like an associate's degree. So we might call that like community college.
Yes.
Okay.
Right. And they would do that either in a private school, depending if they're in a private school, in a what we would call a public school. They might do it in like a community college, because like a private school will go all the way up to 18, but they will study what they want to focus on for their career. They will have already mastered the basics by then to a higher level, in my opinion, than American kids. So when they're 16, in my opinion, they have, because of the exams they have to take, they have a higher level of education than the 18-year-olds. Most of them come. So anyway, they'll study their focus. So if they're going to go on to university later and they know they want to be a nurse, they may say they're going to study biology and math, or I don't know. They have to take 2 or 3 specialties, and they actually get an A level, which would be like an associate's degree, similar to that in those specialties, whatever those are.
So, some of the high schools at least, I'm sure it's other places too, they have it where the kids start to choose their career path, and they'll have like a dual path, and then they'll graduate high school with an associate's.
Similar. It's very similar to that. Yeah,
okay.
Except it's across the board, so it's everyone. So, But then there'll be some kids that leave school at 16, and they either have to have employment already, or they cannot, if they can go straight into employment if they have a job, or they could go into like some sort of apprenticeship program if they want to, like they get an apprenticeship in plumbing or electrician or something like that, or they could study something at college, which would be something technical. It could be, I don't know. A lot of them are studying like games design, or it could be like hairdressing. A lot of these things are studying.
I kind of actually think that's a great model. I'm not going to lie. I kind of think that's a really great model. They finish at 16 and then they start their career path by going
either, whichever it's going to be. If they do not have a job at 16, they're required to go to college.
Yeah.
Until they're 18. They cannot leave permanently until they're 8, unless they have a job.
Kind of digging on that, honestly.
Yeah, it's really quite good. But those 16-year-olds, they're pretty darn smart when they come out. I mean, they have a lot of knowledge. They have to take think it's 6 or 7 exams in all of the basics, and they're not multiple choice either. They have to write out the
Oh,
answers.
it's like long essay on
Yes.
answer. Oh, and
It's
they still have the blue books where they write in them and all that.
yes.
Oh my
And
gosh.
they are pretty hard. I mean, they're, in English, they're
Interesting.
writing essays on Macbeth, and in
Wow.
history, they have some really sophisticated. I mean, they're
Wow.
pretty good.
That's
Yeah.
cool. That's really cool.
Okay, so what's next for Nessy and your work at the Reading Center?
Well, okay, so Nessy, we sold it on, and it was purchased by a Swedish company called ILT, and so it lives on under a different ownership. So they are still going. And we are focused on our 2 charities here. So the Reading Center is no longer there because I'm no longer in Texas to run it. So I shut it down during 2020, during COVID. I shut it down and never reopened it. But I was quite focused on my work here at that point. So it isn't there anymore. But our 2 charities are here. Dyslexia Trust, which is a global charity. It's called the Global Dyslexia Trust, and we work in many countries around the world. And then we have Dyslexia Britain, which is, of course, more regional.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that. So one last question, and then we're going to do lightning round questions. I know I didn't send you those because I want you to do it on the fly. So what's your long-term vision for dyslexia support and awareness in the U.S. and globally? I'm sure your charities that you've talked about is part of that vision.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely our vision. And we continue to focus on our mission, as it always was, is getting kids help immediately when we can and as young as possible, especially those that don't have as much advantage. Because that's one thing that really did bother us throughout both of our careers, is that children that come from, middle class and upper middle class households, they were being put into centers like the Reading Center or the Bristol Dyslexia Center here in this country because their parents could afford to do that, or they were being tutored at home, maybe privately by their mother or someone in their family because they could afford to do that. But the kids that couldn't afford to do that, I mean, it absolutely broke our hearts. And so that is where we focused, and we'll continue to focus. And then the secondary focus is really advocating for this, getting good university instruction and getting at least one specialist on each campus, because if you get one, that person can teach the others, right? So you can get a good culture going of good services for dyslexic kids.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Are you ready for lightning round?
Yes, I'm ready.
I don't want you to choose one question, but I bet you're going to do it.
I'm a little bit
I want to
nervous
do
about
it.
this lightning.
I want to do it.
Oh my gosh, Amy. Just write down there which one you want.
I'm going to highlight it so you can see.
Okay, there we go. All right. So lightning round is basically we're going to ask you a question. You're going to answer it just off the cuff, top of your head.
Okay.
So what is the first book you loved as a child?
Secret Garden.
Oh, that's a good book. I love that. Yes. Okay. So you're from Midland, living in England. What do you prefer, coffee, tea, or something else?
Coffee.
Oh, yay!
I do drink tea, and I drink it white, which means with milk.
Milk. Okay. I was watching a reel the other day, and it was a bunch of little British schoolboys drinking Texas sweet tea. And they're like, this is quite good.
Yes, that's something you can't find out here.
Yeah, no, it was like iced. And they're like, oh, this is quite good.
Yeah, that's funny.
I think I saw that. That was cute. Yeah.
We don't have iced drinks here unless we have the Americans visiting. And then we make sure we have an ice machine that we can plug in and put it on the counter to get extra ice because, the Americans love the ice. And then also, this doesn't have anything to do with literacy, but here they don't use a top sheet. So when the Americans come, like a flat sheet.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Flat sheet. So when Americans are visiting, we have to put flat sheets on all the beds because they don't have those here.
I've actually heard that's being kind of phased out in hotels now.
No, I love it. I love all the layers.
Me too. I like the layers. We have flat sheets on our own bed.
Yeah. And I have to have ice. I mean, I have this huge drink full of ice.
Every time. And they have those counter sonic ice makers now.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Ours isn't like that. That'd be hard to get back from Texas, though. I don't know.
So if I come to England, I will put in my suitcase, come visit you with a sonic countertop ice maker.
How will you get that in your suitcase? That would be great.
I would have to have more than one suitcase.
Have a big one.
It's okay with Greg.
Okay.
All right. So who's your favorite Nessy character?
Oh, I like, well, I was going to say the original Nessy himself is pretty cute. But then the little Harry called Min, the pink fluffy Harry called Min.
Oh, I don't know Min.
I don't know Min. I know the original, and I know the little lamb that's, with the, I guess that's a lamb. I always thought it was a lamb. But yeah.
It's like a fur ball, a pink fur ball.
Oh, we'll have to look into that one.
Yeah.
Min? M-I-N?
Min, M-I-N. She's pretty cute. So it's going to be in that CBC series, Min.
Oh, that's cute. Okay.
So what's a myth about dyslexia you'd erase tomorrow?
I guess that dyslexics are stupid because there's no correlation between dyslexia and IQ.
That's right.
I love that. One word to describe the future of dyslexia education.
Promising.
That was my word too.
Is that your word too?
Yes.
I like
You've seen
it.
lovely things, and they're great. They're great people lecturing. They're great academics. They're great people like you spreading the word on podcasts. So it's encouraging.
Very nice. Thank you. Okay, one more. What's bringing you joy right now?
Looking out my window and seeing the sea.
That would bring me so much joy.
Yeah, it does. I have to admit. And honestly, I had this open back there because I was excited. I hope you could see the sea. And Mike said they're not going to be able to see the sea because the sun is shining in the window. So he's closed. He closed a little sheer there to tone down
we have
the
a
light.
Little condo in Corpus Christi, Texas.
Oh,
and
yes.
So and we were just there, and I kept every day. I told Greg, I said, we could live here. We could live here. You know that, right? We could live here. And he keeps.
Your kids are grown up now, right? Are you?
My kids are grown up. My only kids are dogs at this point.
You can live there.
I can live there. It's not into it.
It's lovely living by the ocean. Yes,
it is.
And now we can visit Tiffany and
you could, yes.
Bring the Sonic ice.
Yes.
Bring the Sonic. Yeah, that's something I miss is a Sonic drink.
Yes.
I love a Sonic Diet Cherry Lime. That's what I love.
Oh yes. Yes,
there's nothing like that here. You don't get a.
My gosh!
Not
I don't know if I can go to London.
Oh,
I don't know.
Come on, that should not be the deterrent.
Well, what am I gonna do?
You'll find all kinds of new, lovely things that you have never tried before.
That's true.
It's funny when we were in Scotland, I'd get coffee and Greg would be at work, so I'd walk to the little pastry shop and get a coffee, and I'd say I'd like a coffee, and they kind of stop. They go, okay, and they give me like this. It was like black, right? Black coffee. And I go, oh, with cream. And they're like, Americano? I'm like,
yeah. You have to say Americano. Yeah.
Are you calling me Americano? What's going on here?
Or just go like straight into a latte, and that way you'll know. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I figured it out after a while. I figured it out. Oh my goodness, Tiffany, it was so nice talking with you.
It was.
Oh, I really enjoyed it. I had a great time. Lovely to talk to both of you. Lovely to talk dyslexia and nice to talk Texas. So
yes, exactly. Oh, we'll talk both all day long.
Yes.
Very good.
Awesome.
And do come see us. Please let us know if you come to the country.
I've got you on Facebook. So
yes, let us know.
Oh yeah.
You can come to Cornwall and see the sea. Google it. Google.
Oh, I know.
Google Cornwall.
I know what it is, Cornwall. Yeah, I know.
Cornwall. Google North Cornwall. That's where we live, and so you can see the sea coast. It's very different than Corpus Christi, but it's both.
Everything is
beautiful in their own way. Yeah.
Okay, I'm writing it down now. That's where we'll be.
We're gonna have to pack Melissa in another suitcase.
Yeah. We live near a place called Tintagel.
Tintagel.
It's supposedly where King Arthur was born.
Oh.
Yeah.
Just fangirling. We need to stop.
How do you spell
Tintagel.
that?
Tin.
Mm-hmm.
Tagel.
Okay. I had put an NG in there.
Do you want to do a closure?
I do.
Okay. So this is Amy.
And Melissa.
And we're the
Dyslexia Duo.
Until next time. Bye. Bye, y'all.
The Dyslexia Duo hosts are Melissa Dean,
and Amy Rodenroth. The producer is Greg Rodenroth.
Dyslexia awareness is so important. Please share with your friends, family, and anyone who needs to know more about dyslexia.
Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and X at The Dyslexia Duo.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.